Some people see it as a friendly gesture. Others see it as an absolute insult. What is it about these little rubber ducks that is creating such a divide amongst the Jeep community? I'm Neil with SFJ 4x4, and I've been driving and in love with Jeeps for decades. I've never seen a trend in the Jeep industry blow up the way that ducking Jeeps has. Whether you like it or not, these ducks are here to stay. There is some controversy as to when ducking actually started. Either way, it was never as big or impactful as it is today. Ducking took off in 2020 when a woman named Allison Parliament, may she rest in peace, was at a store buying ducks to hide around her house to prank her then boyfriend. She had recently purchased a new Jeep, and we all know how incredibly exciting being a new Jeep owner is. As she was leaving the store, she noticed another Jeep in the parking lot, and she decided to take one of the ducks out of her bag and write "nice Jeep" on it and leave it on the Jeep and wait to see what happened. This small gesture created an absolute massive movement. So what's my take on the whole ducking game? I think what makes me a little more apt to present this video, I do not actually play the ducking game. And realistically, while my wife and I are both proud Jeep owners of multiple vehicles, realistically, we only have 3 ducks in our entirety that we keep within our 2 primary Jeeps. Years ago, I had my young children with me, and I keep in my own personal Jeep a duck that my son picked out, a duck that my daughter picked out, and then my wife has this fun little queen duck that rides around in her pink mall crawler. So she keeps one, and while we do oftentimes receive ducks onto our Jeeps, which is fine, we understand the fun that can accompany ducking someone. Realistically, we typically just try to re-gift those or kind of place them on somebody else's Jeep just as a token of appreciation. With that said, we don't actually go out to participate or post or anything to that degree. Realistically, we keep the ducks that we do in our Jeeps to have a positive association about kind of a singular moment of appreciation or a memory, and not necessarily about the game itself. In a sort, is that kind of playing the game? Maybe, but not really. For me, it's about the positive impact that our overall Jeep and 4x4 community can have on the auto industry as a whole. But I do have to wonder, why do people get so upset about something that appears to be such a small token of appreciation or camaraderie? Now, to say that some people love playing the Jeep ducking game, I think would be almost an understatement. In fact, we see dashboards completely saturated with ducks, maybe sometimes 2 and 3 rows, and quite frankly, we've even seen shelves built in, and they'll go vertical, and you have to wonder a little bit of, can you even see through the windshield? But of course, realistically, the answer is yes. And oftentimes you see really built Jeeps doing this, just the same as you see your standard run-of-the-mill stock Jeep. And I think that the individuals are doing it for reasons of camaraderie and kindness. It's a great way of extending the Jeep wave that we've known and loved for decades into a physical and tangible act that actually comes with a little bit of a surprise as well. It's kind of similar to saying, why do we wave to each other? Why do we always park next to each other in the parking lot? And why do we always back into our parking spots? There's really no written rules or expectations, but there is certainly this unwritten belief that somehow this makes us all that more connected. The thing about ducking is that realistically, it's open to everyone under that Jeep umbrella. Now, I've been asked for eons of, how do I feel about other platforms other than your standard Wrangler or Cherokee, Grand Cherokee, the more robust off-roading platforms. And realistically, I got that question more when it comes to the Compass and the Patriot and, the newer Grand Cherokees. Realistically, I love all those platforms, Renegades included. Didn't mean to leave you out. And I love them because they are part of the Jeep family. They're not meant to be ostracized in any way, shape, or form. So while the Wave is oftentimes really just Wranglers or heavily modified Jeeps, ducking can be arguably played by anybody who drives a Jeep branded vehicle. Honestly, and this is a little cringy, but sometimes I see some Broncos running around with ducks too, and I'm not exactly sure what happened there. Maybe even crossing into other platforms as this appreciation of 4x4s and off-road community and just, automotive people enjoying automotive people. It can be great for kids and families. I've absolutely had the experience where we were at a show and my wife's Jeep was there and it's got pink wheels and pink accents and it's on 37s. It looks cool. And I could see just out of the corner of my eye a little girl. I watched her and her sister sneak along the side of the Jeep and kind of make sure that nobody was looking. Of course, I was blatantly looking at them, but they didn't know that, and they reached up and they put the duck on the cowl and they ran away giggling and found their mom down the aisle a little bit, and they were so happy to be playing the game at that time. I don't know whether that parent drives a Renegade or a Patriot or a Wrangler, but I do know in that moment that these little girls fell in love with the Jeep community a little bit more. One of the final reasons why I think that there's a lot of positivity from the people who are so engaged in this is the fact that it takes an automotive experience, a physical drive my Jeep wherever you are on the road, the trail, the grocery store, or some backcountry space, and it migrates it over to the interwebs where people can take that tag or the note and they can go onto social media and they can connect with other people who equally share their passion. I think it's really cool because people can actively engage and look at other ducking ideas and other experiences and tell feel-good stories online where people can kind of all share in that camaraderie. I mean, that's really one of the best human experiences is when we can come together unified under something that is fun and exciting to us. Now, it can be a little overdone, and so there's incredibly divisive belief behind ducking as well. It's really kind of an odd division amongst Jeep owners because it feels like you either really, really love ducking Jeeps or you really, really dislike it, maybe even hate it.
Somebody ducked one of my Jeeps again. Problem solved.
So where does this disdain, this frustration come from? And I suppose it has something to do with some of these folks who believe that the exchanging of the rubber ducks is a little gimmicky, maybe childish, and that it contrasts with the rugged individualism that the brand was supposed to represent. Now, I love the idea that Jeeps can take us anywhere and that they're rugged and the vehicle that won the war, but they are also the vehicle that carries the groceries. And so to say that it is gimmicky or childish does not always fairly represent the game itself or the action of giving the duck. That's a pretty applaudable gesture. Nonetheless, they feel that it can be overdone, and realistically that if you have a dash full of ducks and that they're falling off when you're accelerating or while you're off-roading, they're bouncing around and falling out of the window and potentially falling onto the floor and rolling up under your brake pedal or under your accelerator or throttle pedal, that there could be some danger posed by overdoing it. Now, I think that's a pretty small grouping of people who get that invested in ducks, and usually you've got some type of adhesive or parking pad or something that the ducks affixed to on the dash, but I suppose that is their argument nonetheless. And there is then also the old car show argument of don't touch my vehicle and I won't touch yours. That was something that I was exposed to very early on going to hot rod and car shows, and it was the look but please don't touch mantra. And so there are absolutely people still in the world, regardless of what their vehicle looks like, who want you to respect their personal space and property and not place something on it. There's also the environmental argument, and I don't know how legitimate this one is, but I've authentically seen people saying that it creates waste and litter. I mean, realistically, that argument can be applied to anything, whether it be a hobby or a sport or, any particular interest, but it doesn't stop people from having those opinions in the first place. Now, unfortunately, there is even yet a darker side to the individuals who dislike the ducks. It's not even a dislike, but it's actually a demeaning and derogatory criticism or opinion about people who participate in this fun experience with their vehicles. And realistically, this is the biggest cringy part of the conversation, and the fact that individuals oftentimes throw homophobic slurs around specifically about the game and the actions of giving these tokens of appreciation to each other. Additionally, people slander and put down other Jeep owners just because they have ducks on or around their Jeep. Now, I think that's such an interesting piece because realistically, when we go to shows, we take a diverse showing of vintage to modern day performance Jeeps. And when we have all these vehicles on display, you'd be amazed. The biggest, gnarliest Jeeps get ducks, the vintage, old, cool Woody wagons get ducks, and just your run-of-the-mill plain Jane, we're showing off a product, get ducks. And so it's just one of those awesome equalizing experiences. Somehow there is yet a population of people who feels like that act does not belong within our off-road community as a whole. You might want to share with us what your take on the ducks is, and that'll be fine. You can leave that in the comments below. But the reality is that sometimes, just as there might be too many ducks on the dashboard, individuals who dislike the ducks might take it a little bit too far in their critical nature of them just as well. So where is the middle ground? I find myself to be kind of in that middle ground position. I don't actively play the game, but as I mentioned, I do proudly represent these ducks on my dashboard and in my off-road adventures. No one has to feel pressured to participate, and they equally shouldn't be bullied or demeaned for the fact that they do want to do it. I think we should stick to the spirit of the Jeep culture. No Jeeper left behind. The idea that you shouldn't ever go out onto the trail by yourself. You should always go in pairs or a group. The community has always been about camaraderie. Even that rugged American individualism still is united under a set of core beliefs. So in theory, ducking is just an extension of that communal experience. If it's not for you, that's okay. But there's no reason to necessarily rain on somebody else's parade because you don't like it. I think there's an opportunity to appreciate this as a fun, modern tradition. Yes, the wave has been around since arguably the beginning of Jeeping, but there's kind of no reason why we can't appreciate another community-based approach. So while it's not necessarily an old school Jeep thing, at one time the Jeep wave wasn't either. Traditions evolve, and ducking is just another way for Jeep owners to connect. Ducking can be fun, but it doesn't necessarily define what being a Jeeper is about. Whether you're into off-roading, overlanding, trail riding, or just daily driving, your Jeep experience, like your Jeep, is yours to shape and create. Being part of the Jeep community should be about not creating unnecessary drama. Whether you're pro-duck or anti-duck, at the end of the day, we all love our Jeeps. There's no reason to let a little duck become a big deal. So some of my final thoughts, I suppose, are that if you love ducking, great. If you absolutely dislike ducking, that's okay too. But if a rubber duck ruins your day and makes you have a feeling of lashing out and being upset at other Jeep owners, maybe the problem isn't the little rubber duck. So what do you think, folks? Are you pro-duck? Are you anti-duck? Where have we positioned ourselves as a community, not just of Jeep owners, but as individuals hanging out on the internet together and how we communicate? It's a wild world out there, and realistically, a kind and simple gesture really shouldn't define your ownership experience. If you don't want the ducks on your Jeep, I can respect that, but realistically, I just don't think it's that big of a deal either way. At the end of the day, I'll respect your decision and how you choose your ownership experience. So what do you think? Do you give a about this game that's being played in the Jeep community? We want to hear from you in the comments below. And if you like this video, make sure you check out the rest of the channel for awesome Jeep content on how to buy a used Jeep, to technical tips, to just kind of interesting stories and information about the Jeep and off-road community. We'd love for you to join our Jeep family, where we do, in fact, give a duck.
Get the eye!